Hey guys, welcome back to Chris and Retro. Tonight's video is really going to be a story about the last week and a half of my life and some kind of a crazy stage in life. It's been a culmination of probably several years in the making, and in one instance, 9 months in the making. But there's been a lot that's gone on this week, and as I was talking to my friend Tom this morning, he said if you didn't know better, it's almost too hard to believe, and I agree. I mean, a lot of times things I share, it seems like, when you share stories too much, people are like, oh yeah, you're being grandiose, but this is not grandiose. It's just kind of baffling. And I hope as an outcome of this, you can understand, my approach in terms of how I dealt with this. Maybe it's not always perfect, but some things I wanted you guys to consider. So with that, let's get into the video. 9 months ago, well, a little shy of 9 months ago, Sammy and I had found out, well, we didn't find out, we found out a couple months later that we were going to be having my fifth biological child, and counting my stepdaughter's 6 total children. I'm older. That was definitely a shocker. And we were a little scared at first, and obviously probably still a little scared as we go through it. But as the time went on, we started to really, embrace the notion of a child coming. And this week, our son Kian was born, and he's beautiful. He was born a little premature, which means he's got some challenges, but he's healthy otherwise, and just needs to kind of work through that stage. And we're getting a lot of assistance to do that. I share this with you because it starts painting a picture of what this last week and a half has been. So, about 2 weeks ago or so, I think it was, Sam had let me know that she was heading to the hospital from her office in Rochester, which is unlike her to ever pull the trigger like that. She normally does not panic over things this way, and in many cases, one of the things she'll do is procrastinate and get herself in a bind. This is not one, so I knew it was a serious situation, and we had a scare, that we were going to lose this pregnancy, and so we went to Strong Hospital here in Rochester, and in that environment, with the exception of 2 people, she was treated utterly disgusting. Every single thing that you would expect about stigma was put on top of her. She was viewed horribly and treated horribly, and to the point that they were trying to force her to induce. And at this point in time, at that point, it would have been about 35 weeks, which is very young. And so what that would have meant is that our son would have been in a NICU for who knows how long until he was stable. And so for us, that was unacceptable. And that was not in the room when this doctor was pushing the issue. And she was, is not a strength of hers, but she advocated for herself and really forced the hand of the people to not go against her wishes as a person that is sober with a history and a licensed real estate professional with a history, but doing all the things she's supposed to be doing. And she advocated for herself the way she should. And as a result, we were able to get the support she needed, or she was able to get the support she needed to back them off. And as a result, she was able to leave that facility, healthy, pregnant, but cautionary, recognizing that we had this event. Fast forward about 4 or 5 days after that, we start to get a sense that our son is coming now. And so he sure enough did. So he came about 2 days early from what would be a regular term birth. Now I say that because the first area all the stigma was dumped on her, and it put a lot of stress on an already stressful situation. She's already worried that she was losing her child, found out that she wasn't, and then all of a sudden these doctors are starting to put a ton of pressure on her based on her history and not based on her present time to induce a pregnancy, and making all kinds of statements to her that we've had to deal with for a long time, and had to support ourselves through third-party resources that are in lofty positions to get people to leave us alone. So we had to got to the point where we had to pull the trigger on all that stuff again. So anyway, fast forward to F.F. Thompson Hospital, which is also part of the same system, and we were treated amazing there. And so we delivered our son, and on the second floor, and that's significant for a reason that I'll get into. And the delivery was as expected. She's a tough girl, and baby boy came healthy, and they had to attend him, obviously, because he was 2 days short of full term, and with that came some other complications. So they stayed there for about 4 days, and in that 4-day period, we met some remarkable people, and I want to make sure I give a shout out to Susan McCarthy, who was wonderful. She's a old. She calls herself boss bitch, but she's a Queen girl from Queens. She's got an edge to her, but Celtic heritage, so she's got a little. She's pretty tough, but she was remarkable, and honestly, everything that you would want to see. Sam's doctor, Dr. Price, was phenomenal. Instead of putting Sam off at arm's length when she came into the maternity labor and delivery area, whereas Strong looked at her as an addict and they got to induce the baby. Her doctor, when we got to Thompson Hospital, gave her a shoulder bump and said, "This one's mine." You want to talk about embracing somebody who has gone through a terrible time. What a wonderful way to embrace a patient coming into a facility, is to say, "You're mine, I got you." And so to me, those were just wonderful wonderful experiences of how healthcare should be based on the present status of somebody. And so with that, we were embraced well and treated well through those days. Now, that was the delivery of our son. Now, that's one circumstance, and you may sit there going, "Well, it's not that big a deal." It's birth, and there's other nuances related to it, but it is kind of crazy at my age to be having a child. But he's wonderful, and we're gonna make that all work out well. Now, the second area of this, which is this is where life gets a little bit confusing for me, anyway. So on the third floor is my mother. And my mother, she'd been admitted multiple times over the last 6 months. She's had a long-term battle with dementia, and she is now losing that battle. So on the second floor, I'm delivering my newborn son, and on the third floor, my mother is going through what I think all can believe is a sunset in her life. And what's interesting is that she's become very combative, and I'm getting reports down from nurses that I used to work with in this hospital. At one point in time, I was a peer, and I worked with overdose patients. I worked with a lot of these nurses, so they were keeping me informed on how my mother was doing. And she was pretty combative and literally kicking their rear end. So one nurse got kicked in the jaw twice by her. I mean, she's a tough woman, but she's struggling. And so on the third floor, I've got this going on. At the same time, we've got a lot of stresses. There's a lot of stress going on with two people in recovery. We had a really rough 2024 based on some circumstances that we have dealt with. But with that, there's still just a lot of pressure on us that's different than what normal people have to go through with having a child. And with both of us being in recovery, that comes with a lot of caution that you have to put around your own journey to make sure that you're okay. All these baffling things were all going on at once. My mother, really kind of her disease progressing, my son being born on one floor. We're still dealing with some of the things, and us having a child with our history opens up other areas of scrutiny that we have to deal with. All those things are pressure, and then just the normal everyday life stuff that's pretty tight. So these are the things that we're struggling with, and as a result, stigma is another layer of that just makes it even more difficult. And unfortunately, we were in a facility that I think exemplified how not to be that way. Having come from a facility that acted 100% of why stigma is damaging, we followed through when our son was born with a facility that would go to any length to make sure that we were okay, and that was wonderful. But I would say it's fair to say that our life at this point in time, over the last week, was out of control. There was not much that was in our control. So with all that, this is the flavor and the context. I know it's a lot of storytelling and may not mean anything to you now, but let's get to the heart of it. We talk about a higher power as we go through this, and I know that I've been talking a lot about God on here, but it's relevant. There's a lot of other things about Chris, but one piece of this thing is the God part of it. And the reason that's important to me is, and I'll explain why, is I've been in my journal right here. I've shared this with you guys in the past. As part of my prayer guide, oh, by the way, this sticker, if you go to pondwater.com, you will see those stickers that we've got an online store. But anyway, in my journal, I've been praying an awful lot about God restoring my faith, because in a lot of ways I'd lost my faith. I'd asked him to pour his grace and favor on our family, because I feel like a lot of my behaviors have caused us to be out of favor with him. And I don't think we have to work for salvation, but we certainly need to stay in our lane when it comes to our own behaviors. And I've been missing that for a while. And so I've been asking for my faith to be restored. So out of all this craziness, so I got mom upstairs I'm worried about. I'm worried about Sam. I'm worried about our son. I'm worried about all these other things. There's stuff not done in the house that we certainly were not ready to have a child. He was due September 6th and have it come, August 16th. The house was not ready. Nothing was ready. We were just not ready. But he came anyway. So with that stress, I'm trying to figure out how to make all that work too. And we have 2 young children at home that need to be attended to and dealt with through this whole thing. And on top of that, our home has gone through a major change with my 21-year-old has moved out. And so we're kind of flipping the house around. There just generally was chaos and things were out of control. And so I've got the spiritual component that in these times we're told to lean on that. Like when things are out of control, that's what the serenity prayer is all about, is making sure we understand what can be changed and what can't, and have the courage to make the changes that we're supposed to change. And that serenity prayer is calling on a higher power. And so for me, I'm in this circumstance figuring, okay, what the heck do I do? So I started going through this process, and I'm editing my book right now. And I'm going through the section last week. And I don't think coincidentally, relative to my spiritual awakening on a run on Buffalo Street, and laying down everything that was out of my control pre-sentencing. I was, had a sentencing coming up that had some potential long-term impact in my life. And it was worrisome, and there was a lot of things on my plate. So while I was in the middle of a run, I stopped and just started praying to God and laying literally everything from bills to court dates to everything on his feet, and just saying, look, I can't handle this anymore. Take it. Well, I started to lean into that this week and thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go back to that route and see how it goes. I started to see some positive impact of that. I started to see some immediate impact. It wasn't this long-term aspirational things. I mean, I was seeing tangible things. And I'll tell you one story that has forever changed my faith in God and forever changed my position. And I subsequently prayed afterwards to never let me forget this moment. And I'll tell you why. So Sam struggles with one thing, and that is the fact that her drug use was IV. So as a result, her veins are hard to get blood draws on. And so as part of her process, we needed to get some medication in her so she could handle the delivery a little bit better. And part of that required some blood work to be done and some tests to be run, and we were running out of time. They spent about 50 minutes and I think 6 different people trying to get blood draw from her. And they'd get the needle in and it'd start, and then the blood would just stop coming through. It finally got to a point where we really had a cutoff, and I'm stressed for her. She's stressed out. Things are getting kind of tense. And I remember just closing my eyes over top of her and just praying that God would cause this to happen for her, get enough blood that they could do the test and make it work. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not one of these guys that would really go to the place and say, oh my God, there's a miracle all the time, or I see Jesus in my toast. That's not at all what I am. And honestly, it's hard for me to tell you this story because I know what it sounds like, but it's truth, and it's what happened. As I was praying over top of this, after 45 or 50 minutes of 6 different people coming in, this last one was doing the same thing that all the previous 50 minutes had done. The blood would start and then it would just stop, and they couldn't get the draw, and they'd have to replace the needle and do the whole thing. Well, as this was doing it, I knew we were running out of time, and I prayed. I said, God, please fill these tubes, keep her safe, and help her be comfortable. And as I opened my eyes, the blood started to fill. It filled all the tubes, like all of them, like to satisfaction. Sam, when I shared this with her afterwards, she said, I noticed that thing was doing the same thing, and all of a sudden blood just started coming through and filling up these tubes. It was, in our life, a miracle. And so afterwards, I just said, don't ever let me forget this moment, because in that small moment, that faith that I asked to be restored had been restored. So then afterwards, every single stress that was coming, I found that I was going to lay at his feet. I had some ID theft. They were taking all my money out every single night when I go to bed. My bank would try to replace it, but as soon as they replaced it, it would all go away. That was all going on last week as well. That got resolved as well. And with a lot of assistance from people, but advocacy from other people to get these things solved. It was another thing. I just stopped stressing about it, and I laid it on his feet. I tell you all this because we all go through these times when things are incredibly uncertain. We are out of control. One of my tendencies, I've shared with you before, fear, procrastination, and controlling behavior are very much triggers for me to become active use again. My controlling behavior was absolutely not being satisfied through the last week and a half. It's been challenging, and it's been flying right in the face of everything that makes me uncomfortable. Then you add the fear of losing your son. You have the fear of losing your mother. You have the fear of, your significant other being hurt through everything. And then the fear of postpartum depression, which is a very real thing and something that Sam does struggle with. The fear of what that's going to look like if something happened to our child. These are all fears, but yet at the end of the day, they were all things that were out of my control. So what could I do? Well, pray. And I asked God to take control of the things I couldn't handle, give me the things I could, and give me the strength and stamina to get through. And lo and behold, after 4 or 5 days in the hospital, our son is home. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. One of those things apparently is not sleep. He's eating well. All of his blood work is coming back positive. Her blood work's coming back positive. My mother has stabilized some, even though she's in the natural progression of life. And with all of this, we came out of it with tremendous calamity that in my old ways of doing things would have come out massively stressed and just made it even worse. So now we wouldn't have come on the other side and seen victory. I would have seen that we've just gone through this storm, and it would have layered that storm on any other future storm that I would have. So rather than just say, okay, declaring a victory, we just had a big win, we just made it through a storm, God's real, he was faithful to us, he loves us and was there, what I normally would do is just say, my God, did we ever get a win? Why has everything got to be so hard? Those are the two avenues I go every friggin' time. And so this would have been one of those if I hadn't had that very important lesson that happened with that needle. And in the context of all these other things happening between the second and third floor of the exact same hospital. We are all facing challenging things. And I'm hoping that my story to you, for one, I'm happy that I've got my son here and I'm happy that Sam is healthy. My father has seen peace through the whole thing that I think is extraordinary. I have so much respect for him and how he unpacks things so that he can deal with life. Unbelievably strong and a man of character. But I think that as I went through this week, I've been praying for a long time that my faith would be stronger, and it certainly was. Now, I'm not turning this channel into a religious channel, but this is all part of my journey. And Chris, in retrospective look at things, I have a retrospectively, I would have handled this and say, man, why does everything have to be so hard? And instead, in this one, I'm coming out the other side and saying, man, that was a pretty tremendous victory. It's all about mindset, people. And I hope that you guys can find a strong mindset in the things that you're going through. It's important for you to understand that the higher power piece of this whole recovery journey is incredibly important, because there are going to be times when everything around you seems like it's burning down, or everything around you seems stressful, and it might not be burning down. It's just a heavy, heavy weight. In those circumstances, you cannot do it alone. So don't fool yourself to think you're tough enough, bad enough, or whatever else. Isolation starts. You will eventually find the emptiness of your tank if you continue to try to handle these things that are lessons being taught spiritually to you. I believe that there was many things happened to me this week. One, my faith was restored. Second, I was put in a situation where I couldn't control 95% of what was happening to me. So that I would stop and listen. So I would watch and I would see what was going on, not just observe, but see it for what it was. I would challenge you this tonight. If you guys have a circumstance come in your life, try it. Try laying it in the hands of your higher power. For me, I lay it at his feet. I call him the king because he is. But try it on your life. See what happens when you stop taking control of your circumstances and you start turning it over to the things that you know for sure based on the principles of recovery that you must do. We must turn these heavy things over. We have to. We cannot do them on our own. I hope you find victory in that. If you guys need help through your times, or if you want more about the story or any support, you can reach out to me at chrisinretro.com, and I'll do what I can to help you get connected with people, or possibly give you some insights on what you're struggling with. But I'm thankful for you guys as an audience. I hope this is a useful video for you. It certainly was an impact in my life, and more than just being a dad of another boy. I feel like a lot of change happened in my heart and my mind this week, because I saw the evidence of something that was moving on my behalf when I absolutely had no ability to control what was going on around me. I hope that you find that same victory in your own life. Follow the same process I did, and that process wasn't all that rigorous. I just said, I can't do it. Here are the things I give to you. And I did it every single time something came up, and it made a big difference. Now the challenge for me is to remain in that discipline, because obviously I'm being guided down a path that says there's more for me in this life than just chaos. Thank you so much for tuning in. Between now and the next time we talk, I hope you stay out of trouble, and I will too.